Good
And
morning.
good morning. Welcome to this episode of the Homegrown Podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Harker. Today we're talking about ed leadership, and my guest is Dr. Wylie Sirk. Is doctor correct?
Yes,
Yes, doctor, yeah. Holds a PhD in ed leadership, is a clinical assistant professor at Purdue University Fort Wayne, where he also is the associate dean of the School of Education. And
I'm sorry. I need to clarify that. Can we stop?
yes,
Because
clarify it.
as of the end of June, I'm no longer associate dean.
Okay.
I That was my slip up. I apologize.
That's okay. We will take that out. Graduate program director and advisor
Yeah, that's fine.
of ed leadership. Okay, great. All right. So I'm just going to start in with the hello.
Okay.
Actually, let's we'll replay the introduction, and then we'll just chop off this whole front part.
Okay.
All right. Welcome to this episode of the Homegrown Podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Harker. Today we're talking about ed leadership, and my guest is Dr. Wylie Sirk. Wylie holds a PhD in ed leadership and is the graduate program director and advisor of ed leadership at Purdue University Fort Wayne, a former superintendent, former principal, former elementary and middle level teacher.
Yes.
You've been busy.
Yeah, it has been quite a career.
You've been busy. Yes. Welcome to the show, Wylie. Wylie and I have a couple of connections in our history. When I was in middle school, I attended a summer camp up in Whitley County here in Indiana, and you were working there at the time.
I was. That's actually, I was just getting started in education. And
So were you teaching at the time, or were you just in school?
no, I was teaching. I was teaching at Jefferson Center School there in Whitley County.
Okay.
And I was asked, some fellow teacher friends who decided to take on the director role of Camp Whitley asked me to be their craft director. So it was about 7 or 8 weeks during the summer there.
Yep.
And I did that for 2 years.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually do remember you being out there. Absolutely. And I don't think you know this. We also have another connection that I don't think we talked about. I taught at Jefferson Center.
Oh, really?
Yes, but not, it was about 4 or 5 years after you were principal.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. Early 90s.
Yes. Because
Yeah. That was my second year of teaching, and then I went to Warsaw for a few years.
Okay. What were you teaching?
6th, 7th, and 8th grade math.
All right. Yes.
Yep.
Yes. I left there in 1987. That's when I
Okay.
took my second principal role.
We just missed each other.
Yes.
Just missed. So speaking of school, my listeners know I like to start my podcast out talking about your school experience, because it kind of is a common point for all of us. We all went to school. We all had experiences that kind of shaped our lives a little bit. And so what was school like for Wylie growing up? And also, can you point to anything in hindsight that kind of signaled the path that your life would take here in education?
Yes. I grew up in Fort Wayne, and there was a time in elementary school. I did I'll admit I struggled with reading, um, which I think in the, later on when I was teaching, it gave me a little more feel to that experience. But I got caught up we in moving the end of second grade from one system to another district, and they were teaching reading differently. And I had been going with being taught by sight, and moving into the other district, they were very much focused on vowels, phonetic awareness, all of that. And
Mhm.
the switch was a little bit rough. And I will say I didn't really feel totally confident in reading until I entered college. It just the amount of reading that's required and writing and so forth really gave me a much stronger feel for and the ability to read. And the one thing that always stood out that I talked to my students about was that when you read a passage, you don't necessarily understand it immediately, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's the importance of going back, reading again, other maybe study habits that help you. But just because you didn't get an understanding the very first time doesn't mean you can't comprehend it.
Right. And what an interesting story of switching in the middle of that reading instruction and being taught differently. Um,
Yes.
I know even though I have a math background, I've had conversations with some of my colleagues here about how we teach reading and what's the right way to teach reading. And that seems like that could be a whole podcast episode itself, diving into what happened during those years, um, that was good or bad, or encouraged you or held you back in some way. Um, I We may have to revisit that at some point. So you're in ed leadership, and so for our listeners, kind of give us the rundown of what is ed leadership. I feel like that's a big term that encompasses maybe a lot.
Okay.
So what is it? Why is it important? Um, and I know a question I think of when I hear ed leadership is it just about or primarily about just becoming a principal?
Okay. Yeah, and that is the first thought that when we're talking about ed leadership, that okay, I'm that's not necessarily my path because I know I don't want to be a principal. Well, um, yes, educational leadership program and our program, which is a master's level program, is required to meet the requirements for Indiana and getting your building level licensure, which now today's world is P to 12. Um, there was a time when you specifically either did a secondary level or an elementary level, but several years back they combined it into one license. So the in our program, it's a 30 credit hour master level program, uh, and there are 10 specific courses in the area of leadership, building level focus. But we also, in taking these courses, really it's just about what good leadership is, and it can be applied at all levels. We'll have teachers that come into the program, and they continue to be a teacher for some time, but the process of learning additional leadership skills and strategies helps them directly with students. We'll get other teachers that they've taught for a while, 5 to 10 years, and they're ready to influence a wider audience, beyond their classroom. They just feel that they know want to be equipped to help lead teachers, help lead a building, so that students are successful in their learning. And that's when they maybe want to become a principal. But we'll also have people that use these skills because in education today, there are much more leveled leadership roles, such as a coach, whether that be literacy, math, science, or others. Another leadership role that's becoming more common is dean of students, particularly at the elementary level. And so we'll see in fact, we just this past couple of years, we've had some of our graduates enter that level of leadership. Some of the reasons that it's developed at a school district, it's another way that they can develop their own leaders. That many times you'll see that person in that dean of student position later take on maybe an assistant principal role or principal role. So it's kind of like developing your own leaders within your district.
Growing your own garden kind of thing. Yeah.
Yes.
You kind of answered my next question, and that was, if I don't want to be a principal, does this program still have some value for me?
Yes, and very much so. And our students will talk about that. Plus, as they really get into the program and there's a section midway that they're completing a practicum, so they're actually being mentored by their principal and other principals, and they are doing leadership activities, building level activities. And as they are involved with that, they begin to develop maybe an interest to become a principal, not necessarily right away. And there's nothing wrong with it, because I learned this early on, that you always want to be prepared and you want to be able to answer a call if a door opens that you weren't expecting. If you have the skills prepared, it's much easier to move into that role. So I think it's important to, if you're thinking anything about leadership moving forward, and getting into a educational leadership program, so that you then can have your license and be prepared. That's another thing that I push really strongly, is sometimes people will finish the program but not move into getting their license because, well, I don't need it yet. However, with the way the world changes so quickly, if they don't follow through with, of course, they have to complete the praxis exam, but if they don't follow through with getting their license in 2, 3, 4 years, licensing could change somewhat, and they may be required to do another course or something else. So get your license so that you have that, and then you will always be prepared.
That's some great advice for any part of your life, really. I think be prepared.
Yeah.
So now I know you started this program and you had no online component. But now you're a blended program.
Yes.
With some in person, some online. So a couple of thoughts. Which one do you like better? Do you have a preference, or do your students have a preference? And then what are the benefits that you see for your students in both of those? Because I know several high schools, middle schools, even elementaries that now have, since COVID, of course, now have blended learning opportunities for their students.
Yes. I really, after experiencing both ways, I really do see advantages to the blended program. And that's the feedback that we get from our students. When I originally started at um, Purdue Fort Wayne, which was 10 years ago. Yes, we called it a hybrid as such because we met one Saturday a month for each course. We had an online platform, but we really didn't use it to teach from. Our teaching was on Saturdays. We would be together for about 5 hours once a month, and then uh, they would, in between, use more emails than anything to communicate. As then we began to look at, actually, part of it was because of competition. You had other schools, programs that were moving to, some cases, total online. Uh, I never have felt great about a total online program. Not that it isn't, some people prefer that. That's, it's, we all have our own preferences, but having both online component where assignments are completed there. I do videos of and post those in our weekly forums. We do weekly. We'll do discussion forums where it's like a class discussion, but it's all done digitally. Those work, but we also do meet on Saturdays, 2 Saturdays per course. So there is that in-person time. You and students appreciate that. They feel that they can get a more personalized experience by really, when you're in the same room with someone, you really get to know them and understand them better. And sometimes some discussions that go on much better uh, in person. Now, we also include live Zooming. We'll set up a session, like I have one coming up here next week, and just an hour long for students to come in if they have specific questions. I usually have a couple of key points that I want to talk about, and so we do use that platform, such as Zoom, to be able to still connect digitally, but we're connecting live too. So we do a combination of meetings and ways to work with each other. We've also developed what we call a leveraging your leadership series, and this includes our Saturdays when we meet, and we have select a particular topic issue that is really relevant at the time, that's going on in our schools, and we bring in kind of quote expert, and we have, it's a workshop as such, but we also include other administrators. So our students have an opportunity to actually be sitting around the tables with acting administrators. We're excited because this year, and it's coming up here September 13th, where we're going out into the school districts and they are hosting us. And this first one is going to be in East Allen County Schools. The superintendent and her administrative team will actually be leading us through the morning. The topic area is law and ethics. So they're going to be presenting on much focused on new laws that have just come out in areas of curriculum, school finance, and special education. That is always changing. So we're excited about actually going out into the districts to have our leveraging your leadership series.
I love that piece of it, going out into the schools. And I know that you've recently expanded your program to include law, school law. Is that
We
correct?
Right. We've always had a school law course, but because of the extensiveness of and the topic areas within school law, we now have two school law courses. The first one is, of course, just a general introduction, how laws are made, and an over kind of overview. But then the second one, which we call contemporary law, that's where it's going to be specific with such as special ed, ELL, all of some of those where we can really go much deeper. And that was a lot of that came feedback from our students who said, they just really felt the importance of being able to go deeper into those issues, those areas of law.
I love that you mentioned feedback from your students. You're so responsive to your student needs
Yes,
in
yes.
that way. I love
Yes,
that.
if I could add that too, we
Yeah.
also try hard to be responsive to current administrators. So we'll meet with superintendents, principals, and share things that we're doing, but also ask, what are your needs? What are you needing principals to be able to do? And so we've tailored some of our teaching around that feedback.
That's great that you can stay so current that
Mhm.
way. So I have to ask though, and we chatted about this a little bit in our initial meeting, the laws around things like special ed and schools, they change so quickly and so much. And at it changes with the wind of politics, right?
Yeah,
Depending on who's in office,
right.
that shapes educational law. And it can kind of go back and forth and have this pendulum swing pretty quickly. So how do you keep up? What's the message that you send to your students, or anybody else out there? Really, just advice for teachers out there that are interested in the law and keeping up, but are finding it difficult.
Sure. Of course, you can always be. There are some online uh, uh, news feed that you can use articles that come through, um, but one of the probably um, most efficient ways that to help you is through your different professional organizations. um, Teachers, belonging to their association. You have your principal association. You have your superintendent association. You have your school board association. Your principal and association, superintendent, and school board, they actually will lobby with legislators. So they're always right there on the cusp of changes, and by being members of those associations, they're providing you feedback all the time. Um, I, I I am also now on a school board, and so I really rely heavily on emails from them that do provide those changes and up to date. So plus even your fellow administrators. I know for teachers with special ed, your special ed director in your district is going to be pretty much on top of what's going on. So those are resources as well within your district, key people that you want to be able to contact periodically and talk about some of these issues.
Yeah, and I always found school law interesting. Um, I will say maybe not interesting enough to go study it. um, but it was always a talking point with students. And this whole issue of student privacy and what schools can and can't do. And it was always a really interesting discussion with the students.
Yes.
When
Well,
they would find out we can go in your locker whenever we want and things
see,
like that. And they're like, what?
however, there's just a new law that came out that if a student has left the school district, moved out, maybe even deceased, that first, before anyone within the school can clean out a locker or clean out a desk, they must contact the parent to give them the first opportunity to collect the personal items. So
Interesting.
it is something must have happened somewhere that triggered a legislator to make and
Yeah. We don't make laws like that just for the fun of it,
no,
or
so
on a whim.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, something always has happened. Um, we've kind of touched on this, but give some advice to new teachers that think they have some leadership potential in them. They're in their first 5 years. They absolutely maybe are thinking, well, I don't want to be a principal yet, but maybe I want to be my department chair, or
Right.
maybe I want to be on more committees, or in my case, I became a literacy coach in the middle of my career,
Hmm.
and that kind of gave me a bug for working with adults.
Hmm.
And I think I didn't do an ed leadership program, but I think I really would have benefited from that. I feel like I've had an ed leadership program just from my career.
Right.
Um,
Right.
but what advice do you give to those newer teachers that are thinking, this may be a direction I want to go someday?
Sure. And I think in what you said, I think testing the waters by volunteering to be on a committee within your school. You can start there right within your own school building and with your own fellow colleagues to begin to experiment with leading, taking on maybe it's just a ad hoc one-time committee. Maybe it's helping with a carnival that that your school does with the PTO or PTA, and maybe taking on a leadership role within something like that to begin to see if that's that is what you'd like to do, and then from there maybe take on a school improvement committee, being participating with that, and then you could end up after a couple of years, your principal may want you to lead that committee. Always be open to if a principal comes to you and begins to talking to you about uh, some leadership they would like to share with you, because it's important that principals do share leadership, that they can't do it all, and they need to recognize that. So if they are looking for key teachers, key people in the building that they can kind of pull in a little bit, mentoring a little bit to help in a particular direction of leadership. I think that that can be beneficial for teachers, and it helps to build their own skills, and they can see whether, as you said, for you, starting to work directly with adults, that did trigger an interest. And so you see where it goes from here.
Yeah, I realized I really liked that. Since then, I've taught a few college courses. like an Ivy Tech kind of course. And of course, now that's what I do full time,
Right.
since I've retired from the classroom. So one thing you said that struck me about being open to possibilities, I also think about just the well-being of you as a teacher and facilitating your own career, that it's good to be involved, it's good to volunteer, it's good to not just go in and kind of do your job and then leave.
Yes.
And leadership opportunities can help build out your career and make your career so much more fulfilling.
It can.
Even if you don't want to end up being a principal, maybe you will. Maybe you'll decide, as you said, maybe you'll discover that this is really what I want to do. I'm getting ready to have interview somebody next week who is a middle school principal, but didn't become a principal until after 25 years of teaching, and kind of discovered this passion in her. So I think just the leadership positions that you take on can be fulfilling.
Very much so. And you also, you need to intentionally take care of yourself.
Yeah.
You know, and being able to, of course, it's even for us, it's continual learning. We talk about students that, you know, continual learning, and but that needs to be for us too. And by taking on some of these other roles, it's helping you, and but be sure though you don't overextend yourself. That's another, you know, important key aspect of having times of reflection, self-reflection, so that you keep priorities in their proper places, and you determine, you know, what those priorities are. But you need to actually, I encourage my students to schedule their own personal time, even if it means putting it on the calendar, for self-reflection. Or maybe there's you enjoy reading professional journals, professional books. If you allocate a little time, maybe every day, and just some quietness, um, that that's very healthy.
I like that idea. And I'm one of those. I do love to read professional books. I don't read fiction or all that stuff, but I love to sit down. I'm kind of a nerd that way, I guess. I have a shelf full of professional books. So, well, thank you so much for joining us today, Wylie. I know this has been informative for me, and I like that we ended on this kind of self-care piece, because that's always been important to me. You know, self-care, it's how we get through, right? It's how we thrive in our careers, is taking care of ourselves so we can take care of our students and those around us.
Exactly.
So it's been a pleasure talking and reconnecting with you after all these years.
Yeah.
Hopefully we'll find another way here sometime to connect and possibly work together a little bit. Oh, my camera's gone wonky. That's okay. So if you want to see this episode, you can catch us on our YouTube channel here at Keep Indiana Learning. And don't forget to check out our other great podcasts on the Kindle Podcast Network. Just search KINL Podcast Network wherever you get your podcasts. And that wraps up another episode of the Homegrown Podcast. Join us next time for interesting and informative conversations. Thank you again, Wylie. It was so nice talking to you.
Thank you. It's been my pleasure. I enjoyed it very much.
We'll see you next time.
Take care.